Hi all, my name is Tony Larsson and I'm from D-Design, and today I want to talk about prototyping, and I want to talk about why we do prototypes, and also I want to talk about the different types of prototypes that do exist and in which stage we implement the different types. So with that, let me start off with why do we prototype? The main reason in my view, it's actually to use it as a cost-saving measure, because many people see the prototype as a high cost that increases the overall expenditure on your project. However, a good prototype at the right stage of your project will actually save you a bunch of money, because it will find issues much earlier and then you can address these issues while they are still easy and cheap to fix. In fact, there is this graph here, which if you take a look at it, you see how the cost of the change increases the further along the project that you go. And with this graph, you can understand why a prototype that helps you catch an issue early on can help you save a lot of money. And now let's talk about the different types of prototypes that do exist and when we use the different types in our project. So the very first thing that I want to talk about, it is the mockup. And a mockup, that is something that you employ very early on in your project, and it can be anything that gets your basic concept across. So it can be something made out of cardboard, something that you put together out of clay, and it is basically just meant to communicate the concept and perhaps also give you some sense of scale. Then after the mockup, I suggest that you go on to a proof of concept. And the proof of concept, it is just like it sounds like. It is something that tries out a certain number of aspects of your idea. So for example, maybe you want to test some functionality, maybe you want to test some aesthetics. However, it is definitely not a full-fledged prototype yet, so it will look and work very different from the final product. But it does have more detail than the mockup that you just did. So as an example of a proof of concept and how it can look, I have this casing right here. And this casing, it was developed by myself, and it is an IoT device. And this proof of concept, the purpose of it was to try out how the overall shape would look. So how does a shape like this feel in the hand? And then apart from that, I also wanted to test out how this attachment mechanism would work, because the idea was that you would have the attachment plate here on a wall mounted like this, and then you would simply pop this IoT device in very quickly like this. And this print, it was super affordable to do. I think this cost $15 in total. And also it only took 1 day or two, so very rapidly I could go from having a 3D model on my computer screen to trying out the idea in real life. And this way I potentially saved the company a lot of money, because imagine now that we did not do a proof of concept, but instead we developed the whole mechanical design, and we went and prototyped it with all of the correct materials and all of the details, and only then we found out that this attachment doesn't work. Well, in that case, we would have to go back 5 steps in the process, and this would have been extremely expensive, not just because of the wasted time and money that we had spent on the concept that did not work, but also because we would have to redo a lot of things. If we now continue to increase the level of detail, we get into what is considered the real prototyping territory, because proof of concepts and mockups, they are technically not really prototypes. So what is a real prototype then? Well, the definition, it will change depending on who you ask, but in my view, a prototype, that is the point at which you start to combine a significant amount of functionality and aesthetics into one single unit that you test. So if we continue with the IoT example here, this is a proof of concept, as I mentioned before. But if we imagine now adding electronics to this, so a PCB on the inside, and then maybe a button, some lights, and something else, then I would consider this to be a prototype, a very early stage prototype. Because even if the technology of manufacturing is not the same as in the final product, this would be able to test out a significant amount of aesthetics and functionality in the same unit. And honestly, in the end, it does not really matter what you call this. You can call it a mockup, a prototype, a proof of concept. The point is that you introduce more and more detail as you get more and more detail in your project. You don't start out by doing a long development journey and a mechanical design, a PCB design, and only then try out this shape and this attachment method. You try out the shape and attachment method as soon as you have those ideas as something that you want to do. Okay, so now we have talked about mockups, we have talked about proof of concepts, we have talked about early prototypes which combine functionality and aesthetics into one. The final type of prototype that I would like to talk about, it is the pre-manufacturing prototype. In the pre-manufacturing prototype, we try to combine as much as possible and make this unit as close as possible to the final mass manufactured version. And this means that we will use the same materials as in the final version. We will also use the same manufacturing technologies as in the final version. So if it is going to be CNC milled, then we CNC it. If it's going to be injection molded, then we injection mold it. And also we use the final PCB that we have created. And once you have tested this prototype and run it through all of its paces, then you are ready for mass manufacturing. Alright, so this was my very brief video on prototyping. If you have any questions at all related to this topic, please feel free to comment them below and I will reply to everybody. And also, if you're interested in learning more about mass manufacturing, about prototyping, then check out Product on Rails. Product on Rails, it is a single platform where I have combined everything that you need to develop a physical product. The main part of the platform, it is a course where I combine all of the knowledge that I have gathered over the last 5 years of running an industrial design agency. And basically in that course, I lay out the step-by-step process that I use myself for getting a very early idea all the way through development, manufacturing and market. And apart from the course, you will also be getting access to personal consultations, so that way you will be guided and you will never get stuck in your own development journey. So with that, if you're interested, check out the free trial. If you like what you see, sign up for the full version, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.